On my birthday, in front of everyone, my mom slapped me for kicking my spoiled sister out of my house. "How dare you throw your sister out? This is the day I regret ever giving birth to you," she yelled. I left in tears, but what she didn't realize was how little she truly knew about her so-called beloved daughter. A month later, she called me, her voice shaken with disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" I never thought this day would come. Standing in the doorway of my very own apartment, keys clutched in my hand, I couldn't help but grin. After years of scraping together every penny, living in a cramped rental, and sacrificing small luxuries, I had finally done it. Madison Carter was a homeowner. Everyone always said I was the responsible one in the family. My younger sister, Brianna, jumped from one boyfriend to the next, always relying on them to support her financially. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly at Langston and Parker LLC, saving every extra dollar I could. Mom always dismissed it, saying Brianna was just finding herself. But I knew better. She had always been like this, the golden child who could do no wrong in Mom's eyes. That I ran my fingers along the cool kitchen counter. "This is my kitchen," I whispered to myself. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it was mine. Paying the mortgage wouldn't be easy, but I had mapped everything out to the last detail. Spreadsheets, budgets, expense calculations, I had covered it all. That's just who I am, the planner, the responsible one. Or, as Brianna liked to call me, the boring one. To celebrate, I planned a small housewarming party. Nothing fancy, just a handful of close friends from work and some old school friends. I even invited Mom and Brianna, though I didn't expect much from them. Mom's response was the usual, "Oh, honey, I'm so busy with work this weekend, you know how it is." Brianna didn't even bother to reply. Typical. Janet from accounting was the first to arrive. "Madison, this place is incredible," she gushed, handing me a bottle of wine. "You actually did it." One by one, my friends started showing up. Ryan and Olivia from High. Ryan lifted his glass later that evening. "To Madison," he declared. "Proof that hard work and determination actually pay off." Everyone cheered, and I felt my throat tighten with emotion. These people, my chosen family, were here to celebrate with me. Mom and Brianna's absence stung a little, but I had long since grown used to it. They had always been more invested in each other than in me. 3 weeks after the party, on a quiet Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Dressed in my old sweatpants with my hair lazily tied up, I had been doing some light cleaning around the apartment. When I opened the door, my heart skipped a beat. Mom and Brianna stood there, wearing those all too familiar expressions. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" Mom asked, breezing past me before I could answer. Her designer purse swung on her arm as she strutted inside like she owned the place. Brianna followed behind, still wearing sunglasses indoors like some kind of celebrity. "I wasn't expecting you," I said, still standing by the open door. Mom was already in my kitchen, rummaging through cupboards and drawers as if inspecting her own property. "Madison, you haven't even started dinner? It's already 5 o'clock. "Mom, how could I start dinner when I had no idea you were coming?" I sighed, closing the door behind them. "You could have called first." She dismissed my words with a wave of her hand, the same condescending gesture that always made me feel like a child. "You've always been hopeless when it comes to household chores. I tried to teach you, but you were always too busy with your nose buried in those accounting books." Meanwhile, Brianna strolled around my apartment like she was touring a model home, running her fingers along the walls, peeking into rooms, and shaking her head in silent judgment. "I'll make some tea," I offered, trying to be polite despite how they had barged in uninvited. As I filled the kettle, Brianna finally settled into a chair at the kitchen table. She removed her sunglasses, fixing me with the look I knew all too well, the one she always had when she wanted something. "This is actually a nice place, Madison," she said, her tone sweet but calculated. That was never a good sign. "The location is perfect, right in the middle of everything." "Thanks," I replied cautiously, setting out 3 mugs. Mom was still nitpicking my kitchen organization, but I had learned to tune her out years ago. Brianna traced the edge of the table with her fingertip. "I have some news," she said, pausing dramatically. David and I broke up. She let out an exaggerated sigh. Can you believe he expected me to start paying rent after 7 months together? I bit my tongue and focused on pouring the tea. So anyway, she continued, I had to move out, obviously. And, rent is ridiculously expensive these days. She let that statement hang in the air for a moment before finally dropping the bomb. I was thinking, maybe I could stay here with you for a few months? The mug in my hand froze midway to the table. Just for a little while, she added quickly. 4 months tops. Just until I find a job and get back on my feet. I don't think that's a good idea, I said carefully, setting my mug down. I just moved in myself, and I really need my own space. Mom's voice sliced through the room like a blade. How dare you be so selfish? Your sister is going through a rough time, she has nowhere to go, no money, and here you are, sitting in this fancy new apartment all alone, refusing to help your own flesh and blood. Mom, Brianna can stay with you, I countered, keeping my voice steady. Your house has plenty of room. Before Mom could respond, Brianna let out a loud groan. Oh my God, Madison, have you seen where Mom lives? It's like a retirement village. Nothing but old people walking their dogs and going to bed at 8, Brianna scoffed. It's a perfectly nice neighborhood, I started, but she wasn't done. Your place is in the heart of everything. She gestured dramatically toward the windows. Clubs, bars, shops, places where I can actually meet people and make connections. How am I supposed to rebuild my life stuck in the suburbs? You're being unbelievably selfish, Mom chimed in. After everything we've done for you. They kept going, tag-teaming their arguments like seasoned professionals. When I stood my ground, Brianna would sniffle and dab at her eyes with a tissue. When that failed, Mom would launch into yet another speech about family loyalty. Back and forth they went, like a well-rehearsed routine, wearing me down bit by bit, then Mom went for the final blow. Your father would be so disappointed in you, she said, shaking her head. He always taught you girls to look after each other. What would he think if he could see you now, turning your back on your own sister? That one landed hard. Dad had passed away 6 years ago, and Mom knew exactly how to weaponize his memory against me. I felt the fight drain out of me like water swirling down a drain. Fine, I heard myself say. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. For 4 months. That's it. Like magic, Brianna's tears vanished. Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, she squealed. But there are conditions, I added quickly, forcing myself to sound firm. You have to find a job, save money, and actually move out in 4 months. I mean it. Of course, of course. She practically bounced out of her chair and flung her arms around me. You're the best sister ever. I'll start job hunting tomorrow. I stood stiffly, not returning the hug. Mom looked satisfied, like a chess player who had just claimed checkmate. The next evening, Brianna arrived at my doorstep with 3 massive suitcases and several shopping bags. I barely had time to process what I had agreed to before she was already wheeling them through the front door. So, where's my room? She asked, dragging her luggage down the hallway. She barely glanced around before stopping at my bedroom door. She peeked inside and grinned. This one's perfect. The view is amazing. That's my room, I said quickly. You'll be staying in the guest bedroom. Or you can go back to Mom's. Brianna pouted but didn't argue. I watched as she wheeled her suitcases into the smaller room, her shoulders slumping in disappointment. That first night, I made us both some pasta for dinner. She was still unpacking, complaining about the lack of closet space, when I called her to the table that I figured it was best to lay down some ground rules right away. Okay, if we're going to live together, we need to set some boundaries, I said, watching as she twirled spaghetti around her fork. First rule, no loud noise. I wake up early for work, and the walls here aren't that thick. Fine, fine, she mumbled through a bite of food. This is really good, by the way. Second, we need to be mindful of utilities. That means no long showers, I added, giving her a pointed look that I still remembered. Mom's insane water bills when we were teenagers were still fresh in my mind. "And don't forget to turn off the lights when you leave a room," I added. Maria rolled her eyes. "I'm not 12, Madison. I know how to flip a light switch." Ignoring her sarcasm, I pressed on. "And most importantly, no guests without asking me first. This is my apartment, and I need to know who's coming and going." She set down her fork and met my gaze. "I get it, Madison. Really. I know I haven't always been the most responsible, but I want to prove that I've changed. I'm going to find a job, save up, and be out of your hair before you know it." For once, she actually sounded sincere, more than I had heard in years. For the first time since this whole mess began, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she really was trying. Maybe this arrangement could actually work. To my surprise, the first week went smoothly. I left early for work, and Maria spent her mornings getting ready for job interviews. At least, that's what she told me. She even started cooking dinner. Nothing fancy, but it was nice to come home to a warm meal and a clean kitchen. "How was the interview today?" I asked one evening over a surprisingly decent chicken stir-fry she had made. "Really good," she said excitedly, launching into a story about some marketing firm downtown. "They said they'd call me back next week." This became our routine for about 3 weeks. I'd come home to dinner, a tidy apartment, and Maria full of stories about different companies she had visited. Slowly, I started to believe, maybe, just maybe, my sister had actually changed. Then things started slipping. At first, it was small. I noticed dishes stacking up in the sink. Then the cooking stopped altogether. I'd walk through the door after a long day at work to find Maria sprawled out on the couch, glued to her phone, the apartment looking exactly as I had left it. Or worst point, one evening, after an especially exhausting day, I walked in to see her in the same spot she'd been in that morning. The only difference? She had ordered takeout for herself and left the empty container sitting on my coffee table. That I sighed and started making dinner while she kept scrolling. When the food was ready, she finally wandered into the kitchen, drawn in by the smell. "Maria," I said, keeping my tone as calm as possible, "I thought we agreed to share the household chores?" "Ugh, I'm just so tired of cooking and cleaning," she groaned, helping herself to the stir-fry I had made. "It's so boring. How was job hunting today?" She shrugged, chewing her food lazily. "Went to another interview. They want, 6 years of experience for an entry-level job. Can you believe that? Did you apply anyway?" "No way," she scoffed. "I'm not wasting my time on companies with stupid requirements like that." A month into this so-called temporary arrangement, any hope I had of Maria turning things around was gone. My apartment had become her personal crash pad, a place to recover from endless nights of partying while I was out working to pay the bills. Even worse, I could hear her loud. The walls in my apartment weren't exactly thick, and I could hear every one of Maria's late-night phone conversations. So could my neighbors. More than once, I got complaints about the noise. "Sorry, can't talk now," I overheard her mumbling one morning as I was getting ready for work. "Yeah, totally hungover." "No, my sister's still here." "Ugh, she's so uptight." That night, she stumbled in at 3 in the morning, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. I was already awake, of course. How could I sleep when she was crashing around like a drunk elephant? The next day, she finally dragged herself out of bed around noon, still wearing last night's clothes. "Madison," she croaked, flopping onto the couch like a wilted plant. "I need you to go to the pharmacy. I'm dying. I need those hangover pills, you know, the ones with the electrolytes." "There's water and Advil in the kitchen," I said without even looking up. "You're the worst," she whined. "A good sister would help." That was it. I had officially had enough. That evening, I called Mom. "Mom, you need to talk to Maria," I said the second she picked up. "She's not even trying to find a job. She's out every night partying, sleeping all day." "Oh, Madison," Mom interrupted with that familiar dismissive tone. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. She just needs time to figure things out. You were always so serious at her age." You never knew how to have fun. Meanwhile, the apartment was turning into a disaster zone. Maria's room was the worst of it, dirty dishes piled up, half-eaten food left out, clothes scattered everywhere. It was disgusting that I stopped bothering to check her room altogether. The one time I did, I found empty wine bottles rolling around on the floor and dirty coffee cups hidden under heaps of laundry. The smell alone made me gag. One evening, when she was actually home for a change, I finally confronted her. "Maria, this has to stop," I said, my voice firm. "You're not looking for a job, you're not helping around the house, and your room," that set her off. She stormed into her bedroom, slammed the door, and immediately started dialing her phone. 25 minutes later, mine rang. It was Mom. "Madison," she screeched before I could even say hello. "How dare you harass your sister?" She called me in tears. "Mom, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. She's trying her best, and all you do is criticize her. I raised you better than this." The next 3 months dragged on like a slow-moving nightmare. My utility bills had doubled because Maria took hour-long showers, left every light in the apartment on, and blasted the AC even when she wasn't home. That I was spending a fortune on groceries that she ate without ever contributing a single cent. The kitchen was constantly a mess. Unless I cleaned it myself, the kitchen remained a disaster. Meanwhile, Maria's social life had never been better. She came and went at all hours, always dressed up for another night out, constantly meeting new friends. She helped herself to my food, my wine, my toiletries, anything she could get her hands on. But actual work? That was beneath her. Then came Monday, the jingle of keys and the sound of drunken giggling yanked me from a deep sleep. I squinted at the clock, 4:15 a.m. Another one of Maria's late-night returns. But something was different this time. I heard 3 voices. Throwing on my robe, I stepped into the hallway, and the sight in front of me made my stomach drop. Maria could barely stand, her makeup smeared, but she wasn't alone. A guy I'd never seen before had one arm wrapped around her waist. He was tall, wearing a leather jacket despite the summer heat, and had that smug, cocky expression I'd seen on too many of Maria's ex-boyfriends. "Oh, hey, Madison," Maria slurred, flashing a lazy grin. "This is Jeffrey. Isn't he hot?" Jeffrey barely spared me a glance before going right back to kissing Maria's neck. "Maria," I said sharply, my patience already wearing thin. "What is he doing here?" She swayed slightly, still grinning like she was about to share the best news ever. "Jeffrey's gonna stay with us," she announced, as if I had somehow agreed to this in another lifetime. "His roommate kicked him out, can you believe that?" It felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water on me. "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "Oh, don't be such a buzzkill," Jeffrey finally spoke, his tone oozing arrogance. "Your sister said it wouldn't be a problem." Then, as if I wasn't even standing there, he pulled Maria closer, and they started making out again, right in front of me. His hands began wandering in ways that made me want to bleach my eyes. "Enough," I snapped. "Jeffrey, you need to leave. Now." Maria groaned dramatically and pulled away, her expression filled with annoyance. "No way. He's staying with me," she insisted. "This is my apartment," I shot back, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. "You don't get to move in random guys without asking me first." Maria's face twisted with fury. "You're such trash," she shrieked, her cheeks flushed red. "You've always been jealous of my relationships." That was it. The last of my patience snapped. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Both of you. Now." Maria swayed slightly, blinking at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You can't kick me out, I live here." "No, you don't." I turned, marched into her room, yanked her suitcases from the closet, and threw them onto the bed. "You were supposed to be here temporarily. You were supposed to be looking for a job. You were supposed to be trying." I turned back to face her. "Now pack your things." For a moment, she just stared at me. Then, as if a switch had flipped, she started yanking clothes and other belongings into her suitcases like a hurricane tearing through a room. Jeffrey leaned against the doorway, watching silently. 17 minutes later, she slammed the last suitcase shut so hard I thought the zipper might break. Grabbing the handles with knuckles white from anger, she glared at me. "Fine. Keep your stupid apartment," she shouted, dragging her suitcases toward the door. "You're a horrible sister. You've always been horrible. I hate you." She stormed out, Jeffrey trailing behind, throwing every curse word in the book at me as she left. The door slammed behind her so hard that the pictures on the walls shook from the force of the door slamming. Then, silenced at my hands trembled as I stood there, still processing everything. It took exactly 45 minutes for my phone to ring. Mom's name flashed on the screen. The moment I picked up, she shrieked, "How dare you throw your sister out in the middle of the night?" She could have been hurt. I didn't respond. I just hung up and turned off my phone completely. The silence in my apartment after Maria left was almost too quiet. In the first few days, I threw myself into deep cleaning. She had left an absolute disaster: moldy dishes under the bed, wine stains on the carpet, sticky spots on nearly every surface in the guest room. I filled so many garbage bags that it felt like I was emptying an entire landfill. Better safe than sorry, I told the locksmith when he came to change the locks that he didn't ask questions, just nodded and installed the new deadbolt. When he handed me the fresh set of keys, they felt like freedom. My birthday was coming up soon, and for the first time in years, I decided to celebrate it at home, my newly cleaned, Maria-free home. I invited my closest work friends, some old school friends, and a few cousins from Dad's side of the family, the ones who actually understood the situation with Mom and Maria. I did not invite Mom. I did not invite Maria. I just wanted one day. One drama-free day. The party started off perfectly. Janet from accounting brought her famous chocolate cake. Ryan and Olivia showed up with a bottle of my favorite wine. My cousin Amy handed me a beautiful houseplant, smiling knowingly. "To celebrate your reclaimed space," she said. That we were all in the living room, swapping stories and laughing, when the doorbell rang. My heart sank that I knew that ring. That aggressive, impatient, attention-demanding ring. Sure enough, when I opened the door, there stood Mom. She stormed into my apartment like a dark cloud, her sharp gaze sweeping across the room. She didn't even say, "Happy birthday." Instead, she planted herself in the center of the room and began her performance. "I can't believe you're all here celebrating with her," she announced, her voice dripping with contempt. When she threw her own sister onto the street in the middle of the night, the room fell into an awkward, suffocating silence. My friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Mom," I said quietly, "this isn't the time." "When is the time?" she demanded, eyes burning with accusation. "When is the time to talk about how cruel and heartless you've become? Your poor sister has been devastated." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maria acted terribly. She took advantage of my kindness. She was selfish." Mom's voice rose even higher. "And you? You're no better. You've turned into a selfish, cold-hearted woman. Is this what you wanted? To live alone in your fancy apartment while your sister struggles?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe if you spent less time spoiling Maria and more time actually parenting her, she wouldn't be struggling. The crack of her palm against my cheek echoed through the silent room. The slap was so hard I stumbled backward, my hand flying to my face in shock. My cheek burned. My eyes stung with tears. Mom's voice was full of venom as she spat, "Ungrateful brat. You're no daughter of mine." Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood frozen, blinking rapidly, willing myself not to cry. But it was useless. The tears came anyway. Amy was the first to move, wrapping her arms around me as I finally broke down. The rest of my guests gathered around, offering soft words of comfort. But it didn't matter. The party was ruined. My perfect, drama-free birthday had been destroyed in less than 10 minutes. "Your mom's house." Amy's words settled in my mind like an unwanted guest. I changed the subject. I didn't want to know more. 5 months passed. I focused on work, redecorated my apartment, and even started taking yoga classes. Life was peaceful, no drama, no late-night disruptions, no family stress. Just quiet mornings with my coffee and relaxing evenings with my books. Then, one day, my phone lit up with Mom's number that I almost didn't answer. But something, maybe curiosity, made me pick up. Madison, Mom's voice was different. Softer. Please don't hang up. I need you to listen. I stayed silent, waiting. You were right, she admitted, her voice breaking. About everything. She took a shaky breath. Maria, she's out of control. She and that Jeffrey person have taken over my house. They don't work. They don't help with anything. They just make a mess, over and over again. I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. They throw these parties, she continued, in my house. In my quiet neighborhood. And when I tried to stop them last week. Her voice cracked. Maria, she pushed me, Madison. She actually pushed me down. Mom was crying now. I need your help. Please. Please. I don't know what to do anymore. I sat there, listening that I remembered the sting of her slap. The words she had thrown at me on my birthday. Ungrateful brat. You're no daughter of mine. I exhaled slowly. You need to handle this yourself, Mom, I said quietly. Your golden daughter is your problem now. Then I hung up. And I blocked her number, but updates still reached me through the family gossip chain. Amy called me regularly with news. Mom had filed an eviction lawsuit against Maria and Jeffrey. The house had turned into a war zone, daily screaming matches loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. One night, the police even showed up after concerned neighbors reported a disturbance. Apparently, one of Maria and Jeffrey's wild parties got so out of hand that someone thought they heard fighting. Aren't you worried about them? Amy asked one day. No, I replied honestly. Mom made her choice a long time ago. She always picked Maria over me. Always defended her. Always made excuses. Always painted me as the bad guy for not enabling her. This is the result that I don't know how the eviction case ended. I don't know if Maria and Jeffrey finally left or if they're still making Mom's life miserable. I don't know if Mom finally learned her lesson or if she's still making excuses for her precious younger daughter, but here's what I do know, my apartment is peaceful. My bills are back to normal. My dishes stay cleaned. My lights get turned off. No one helps themselves to my food or my wine, and I sleep through the night. No drunk giggling. No slamming doors, just peace.